Let's go into this. Okay, so Airbnb today, the 27th, this Monday, we're recording this. This is what comes out. This says October the 27th. Yeah. Most hosts who use property management software will automatically transition to a single fee structure. This is right off the Airbnb.com newsroom website. And then it goes into this. I'm kind of alley-ooping this to you right here.
Yeah. So this is a big change, right?
Okay.
Airbnb continues to make policy changes, continues to make these fee changes, and they announced this a little while ago. We've talked about it a little bit on the podcast. We talked a little bit about, a lot through our coaching program of strategies and what we're going to do. But today's the day. We're recording this on Monday. It comes out on Wednesday, but it's today's the day where they're saying, hey, everybody's on this now.
Yeah.
And it's, if you're using a property management tool, blah blah blah. It's most people are going to be affected by this, where there are no more guest fees. So instead of the guest having their your cleaning fee, your nightly rate, your taxes, and your Airbnb fee, Airbnb is saying, hey, listen. Hey, host, you're paying all the fees now. So instead of the guest paying a 12.5% and you're paying 3.5% or whatever it was, you're now paying 15.5%. And the guest pays nothing. What this does is it really affects your net, because you're ultimately, and you really need to break this down side by side. Okay. And it gets a little bit complicated when you run the math and trying to talk it through. But for $100 a night, it's not just as simple. I've said before, simply stated, you need to raise your prices by 15.5%.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it really matters how your management, if you've got a management company, how they're charging. Are they charging on gross? Are they charging on net? What the taxes are getting charged? Because the taxes are the big winners in this move are Airbnb and the taxes, because the taxes charge, the hospitality lodging taxes charge normally off nightly rate plus cleaning fees. So if I'm charging $200 a night and $50 I know we don't charge nightly cleaning, but let's say it breaks down after they stay, it's $50 extra a night. And so I'm paying $250. I'm paying my 15.5% on that $250. I'm paying whatever my lodging taxes are, usually 12 to 16%, depending on the market you're in. And ultimately, those two are making a really nice, a really nice chunk on that additional thing, because what we did is we raised those prices. Now, if we raise our prices by 15% to cover that, they're getting that extra tax and that extra fee on the gross revenue amount. So they get a nice bump. For us, our net, depending on how our management company is charging us on gross or net, I always have my management companies paid off of my net instead of my gross. They could be big winners too, because you raise your rates. If I'm charging $200 a night and I raise it 15%, now I'm charging $230 a night, and my management company's charging me 20%. All of a sudden, in the first scenario, they made $40 a night, and I made $160 a night. Right. In the second scenario, if they're charging me 20% on that, they're making, what is that, $44 a night. So they're making an extra. They're making that extra 20% off the extra $30. So they're making $46 a night. Instead
way to go
40,
on the math.
right?
Timeout. Way to go on the math right there. That was so good.
So they're going to get it up. But what that does is now that's net. Now my net is 157 or 154 instead of 160, which ultimately, that starts to add up when it's, 3% here, 4% here. And so you need to talk to your management company about making sure that they're not winning and you're losing. Work it out together. But if it's off the net, it doesn't matter. That's an example off the gross. Again, long story short, is I've heard in a perfect world, and everybody's saying it, and everybody's saying, hey, listen, you need to be raising your prices. And it's usually going to be somewhere between that 15 to 18, maybe 20%, depending on how everything is structured, for you to net the same amount. And the guest is pretty much going to be close to even. Even if you raise it by 18 or 20%, they might be paying a couple bucks more a night, but it's not much. Airbnb's a winner. Taxes are a winner. What we're trying to do is keep it even for us and ultimately make it to where we're not getting hurt by being on Airbnb. The other option as well is you should be doing this just on Airbnb, right? You should be just raising your prices on Airbnb. So whatever your pricing tools that you're using, your software, property management system, software tools, they can all do this. When you set your pricing, raise those rates on Airbnb only as a platform. As a platform fee, right? And so don't raise them across the board, because if you do it on Vrbo or Booking.com or these other platforms, all of a sudden your guest is paying way more on a platform that you may want to get a little more business on. And so here's the dilemma in the past that I've talked about. And there's a lot of people that are like, see, this is why you diversify on multiple platforms and everything else. True. Totally agree. There's definitely an argument to have some diversification and making sure that you were on multi-channels and you were doing direct bookings. Now, we always do direct bookings as well, but I've always said one of the things that hosts are always trying to do is rank as high as possible, and they want to say, hey, how do we get in favor with these algorithms on Airbnb or Vrbo? Well, I've said in the past, one of the best ways to do that is to focus on one of the platforms. Because if we do really good at optimizing on one, it's really hard to optimize on multiple. So you can be diversified but not optimized on Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com. In this scenario, that feels really good because you've got other options. You're getting maybe 40 or 50% of your business somewhere else. In my situation, I was optimized on one platform. Most of my properties were optimized on Airbnb. So I'm not getting a lot of business from Vrbo because my focus was trying to optimize. I wanted to be ranked really high. We've got #1 revenue properties in markets. We only do that by being able to be really focused and optimized to maximize our listing. That hurts us in these scenarios when we're not that diversified and we don't have an option to go back and say, well, now I want to be on Vrbo. I have to go relaunch and kind of start on Vrbo if I want to do that. So I realize that in these situations, that kind of hurts us. So we have to make sure that we make these adjustments pricing wise. The jury's still out of how many people will make those adjustments pricing wise, because and I don't think it's going to be, everybody's like, well, everybody's going to do it because nobody wants to make less money. That's a perfect world. And that's easier said than done. I've also heard a lot of management companies suggesting to their owners now to say, well, maybe split the difference. Maybe only raise it by 7 or 8% instead of 15 to 20%. And I did the exact same thing. I'm like, why would they do that? Right? Well, run the scenario down. They're probably getting paid on the gross. And so if that host raises their prices by half, that management company is making the same amount. However, the host is making a hell of a lot less.
Wow.
So, in my opinion, the advice is a little bit self-serving to say, well, listen, maybe we only have to go up half and not upset the apple cart too much. We're going to be priced really competitively. We still make the same amount of money. And those are probably, in my opinion, if you're getting that advice from your management partner, go look and see what your contract says and how you're paying your management partner. I bet you're paying on the gross amount, not the net amount. And that management partner, by going up half, is probably putting the same amount in their pocket. So something to think about, something to look at. The change has happened. It's here. They gave you the option to do it for a while. We all chose to go proactively and do it. We wanted to kind of do it proactively, get it in. So this change isn't hitting us today. We made that suggestion about a month and a half ago to say, why don't we go proactively do this, get ahead of the curve, and so that we're starting to optimize with that new pricing structure, paying those fees to Airbnb, and it's worked out okay. But we will see what happens with pricing. Now, a lot of people use price optimization tools as well. Another kind of asterisk to note is as those like Price Labs and stuff, what they're doing is they're going to start to suggest prices, and they're going to see if people start to raise their prices, they're going to suggest higher prices. So you may actually have to back it down a little bit because the price optimization tools are also suggesting a higher price. So you could be actually adding a little more than you need to which is a good thing if you're keeping it booked. But if your bookings slow down, watch and see what the price optimization tools are doing as well, because they might already suggest an increase in rate versus and on top of what you decided to do 15 or 18%. So just watch it. Right? Things to watch.
Okay, 2 questions came about. Do you think this will be a time of exodus when it comes to property managers? People are just going to go, this is too much. I don't want to deal with all this. And they're going to start to leave property managers?
No, I think that most people who use property managers, they use them for a reason. I mean, I use them for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm paying 20 or 30% off the top, right? Where they're taking 20 to 30% of my gross revenue, depending on the market I'm in. And we use them because we want to spend our time doing, like, our highest and best use of my time is not managing a property.
Right.
And so some people, they're in that situation. Their highest and best use of their time is not managing a property. And so it might, if somebody is like kind of on the fence, it might push them over to the edge and say, hey, I'm going to figure this property management stuff out because I could use that extra revenue in my pocket with all of these changes. My hope is that people are smart and they treat it like a business and they price accordingly and the prices go up to cover those fees that were once getting paid by somebody else. All you're doing is passing it on to consumer anyway. It's taking the fees instead of charging the consumer the fees. You're saying, okay, I'm just going to charge you more on the nightly rate and I'll pay the fees. So like
on the front end, it looks better for the consumer.
Yeah,
they go, you don't have as many fees,
exactly.
but I mean, you're still paying.
You're still paying it,
right?
Just like everything else, right? You pay it regardless.
Yeah.
You're going to pay it, however you want to do it. If California passes a minimum wage for $25 an hour at McDonald's, guess what? The Happy Meals go up, right? You're going to pay it one way or the other. So you can the consumer ends up paying it one way or the other.
Okay. Now, we talked about when this first came out, like a month ago, I guess, or a month ago, we started talking about how you should slowly raise the prices, right? You shouldn't just hike it up to the 15%. You should slowly over the time start to raise it. Say someone hasn't been acknowledged that podcast, or now they're just for the first time hearing about this. Should they just immediately hike it, or should they go slowly up?
That's a great question. Historically, anytime we make price adjustments, we make adjustments 5% increments, and that doesn't upset what that is trying to tell me to do. The reason we do that is we want to see where that threshold is with the consumer. Okay. Right? We're saying, okay, does at 5%, they're still booking my property. I can go up another 10%, they're still booking my property. I go up 15%, they don't book it. Let's say that, right? And so we do that because then what I can do is I can go back down to 10 and I got a 10% increase. If I go from 0 to 15 and they don't book my property, I don't know if I have to drop to 5. I don't know if I have to drop to 10. Where was that line in the sand that they said, I'm not going over that. I'm not crossing there. And so that's why we do that. I would suggest in this scenario, putting that fee right immediately on. Okay. So that the price, because in the consumer's mind and the consumer front facing seeing properties and the prices that they're paying is not changing if you're adding a 15% on the back end. They're going to see the same overall price that they're paying for the property. Okay. Right. And so in this case, you're not really testing a threshold of where the consumer's threshold is. It's already at $100 a night, right? Or it's already $115 a night. And we were just charging $100, but they were paying $115. So if I jump at 15% and I'm now at $115, consumer still sees $115. So there's not a threshold there that we're trying to cross. If I go above what they were seeing, then I would go 5% increments. But you can make that jump to be equal to what they were seeing right now, and you've already know that they're already booking that property at that price.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense. I love it. Do we miss anything on that? I think that was good. Yep. Right? Yep. All right. Let's go into
the asterisk is that I would say anybody listening, raise your prices. Right. Don't be the guy that is, or the gal that is sitting there and holding on thinking, well, I don't want to raise that much. And you're not. Understand that the consumer is, if just raising that price, that 15% is the same price the consumer's always been paying. And so, if you don't, you're going to be taking a 15% cut on your revenue overall, and you run that out for the year, depending on the property, that's a lot of money.
I'm going to add